Jack had always lived a quiet life, a normal 20-year-old student living in a small suburban neighborhood with his mom, Dr. Emily, a scientist. He liked things simple: school, games, hanging out with friends. Nothing too exciting. But that was about to change in the most unexpected way. It was a regular afternoon when Jack was at home, playing a game on his computer, when a sudden crash shook the entire house. The windows rattled, and the floor beneath his feet trembled. His first thought was that it might be some kind of earthquake. But when he looked out the window, he saw something much stranger. A glowing metallic object was stuck in the middle of the street, half buried in a large crater. It looked like a spaceship, something straight out of a science fiction movie. Jack stared in disbelief, his heart racing. Without thinking, he grabbed his jacket and rushed outside. As Jack stepped closer, the ship seemed to hum softly, as if it was alive. The air around him felt electric, charged with something unknown. He was about to turn back and run inside when the hatch of the ship suddenly opened. From the darkness inside, a figure stepped out. At first, Jack thought it was a human in a strange spacesuit, but as the figure moved closer, he realized it wasn't a human at all. The alien was tall, with smooth, pale skin that shimmered like polished marble. Her eyes were a bright, glowing blue, and her long silver hair flowed down her back. She wore a tight-fitting suit that looked like a mixture of armor and fabric, with strange symbols glowing across it. She stepped toward him with a confident, almost regal air. Jack was frozen in place, not sure whether to run or speak. The alien smiled, showing perfect white teeth, and said, "I've come for you." Jack blinked, confused. "What? Who are you?" "My name is Zora," she said, her voice smooth, yet strangely demanding. "And I've come to Earth for the sole purpose of breeding with you." Jack's jaw dropped. "What?" Zora didn't seem to notice his shock. "Human DNA is unique," she explained, looking at him with a serious expression. "I need it. My people, we are dying. Your species holds the key to saving us." Jack's brain was scrambling to process what she was saying. "Wait, what? You want to breed with me? Is this some kind of joke?" Zora's expression didn't change. "I assure you, I do not joke. Your genetic code is the answer to our survival." Jack couldn't believe his ears. Was this some kind of weird alien encounter? Or was he hallucinating? Before he could say anything else, Zora stepped closer, her eyes locking onto his. "I do not have time for human games. Your cooperation is vital." Jack opened his mouth to protest, but before he could speak, his mom's voice came from behind him, sounding more confused than worried. "Jack, what is going on out here?" Jack turned to see his mother, Dr. Emily, standing on the porch, her eyes wide as she took in the sight of Zora. I don't know, Mom, but this alien says she wants to breed with me." His mom's face shifted from shock to concern. "What? Jack, get inside now." But Zara stepped forward, unfazed. "Your mother does not understand. This is the only way." Jack was caught between two worlds, one where his mom was trying to pull him away from the crazy alien, and another where Zara seemed deadly serious about saving their species. The weirdness of the situation was just beginning. Jack's mind was racing as his mom, Dr. Emily, pulled him inside the house. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest. The alien, Zora, was standing just outside the door, her glowing blue eyes watching them closely. "Mom, I swear she's not joking. She actually says she wants to, breed with me," Jack said, his voice trembling with confusion and disbelief. Dr. Emily frowned, looking out the window at Zara. "I don't care if she's from another planet, Jack. We need to figure out what's going on here. Now." Jack's mom was a scientist, but she wasn't used to dealing with situations like this. She spent her days in a lab, studying biology and the unknown, but nothing in her career had prepared her for an alien standing outside her house. She quickly grabbed her phone and started making calls to some of her colleagues, trying to figure out what to do. Meanwhile, Jack stood by the door, still unable to process the bizarre situation unfolding around him. Zara's voice suddenly cut through the silence. "I am not here to cause trouble. I've come because your planet has what I need. Your species holds something precious." Jack opened the door cautiously. "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" Zara stepped forward, her face serious, and Jack couldn't help but feel an odd mix of fear and fascination. She spoke in a calm, almost robotic tone, explaining things that Jack never thought he'd hear from an alien. "Our species is on the verge of extinction," Zara said, her eyes reflecting a deep sadness. "We've tried everything to save ourselves, but nothing works. The genetic diversity of your species, your DNA, could save us. It is the answer to our survival." Jack stared at her in disbelief. "You're telling me that you want my DNA? That's it? You came all this way just for that?" Zara nodded. "Yes. The genetics of your people are unlike anything we have seen across the galaxy. Our species cannot survive without it." Jack blinked, still not sure if he was dreaming or if this was some elaborate hoax. His mind raced with questions. What did she mean by extinction? How could human DNA be so important to an alien race? Why him? Okay, but why me? Jack asked, still feeling the confusion clouding his thoughts. What makes me so special? Zara's gaze softened, and she took a step closer, lowering her voice. You are the perfect match. Your genetic profile, your species, you have qualities we need to revive our race. Your biology can help us. Before Jack could ask anything else, his mom stepped into the conversation. Enough of this. I need to understand exactly what's going on, Dr. Emily said, her voice firm. Zara, I'm a scientist. I need proof. I need to know you're telling the truth. Zara looked at Dr. Emily for a moment before replying. You will have your proof. I can show you the technology of my people, the medical data. I understand your need for evidence. Jack's mom seemed to calm down a bit, though her protective instincts were still high. All right, let's sit down and talk. But you better have some solid explanations for what's happening. As the conversation shifted, Jack's mind was still spinning. His mom seemed to believe Zora's claims, at least enough to listen, but Jack wasn't sure if he could trust her. After all, she was an alien, and Jack had always thought such things were just stories. But Zara seemed different. She didn't seem like some dangerous invader. She was just desperate to save her people. I'm sorry, Jack said after a long pause, his voice barely above a whisper, but this is all too much. How can we even begin to help you? Zara didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at him with a quiet intensity. I came to you because you are the key, and I will not leave without you, Jack. My people's future depends on it. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. This was no joke. Zara wasn't just some alien with strange ideas. She was in desperate need of his help. And whether he liked it or not, his life would never be the same again. The conversation in the living room grew tense. Jack sat on the couch, his head spinning as Zara stood across from him, watching quietly. His mom, Dr. Emily, paced back and forth, her mind working at full speed. She was a scientist, used to strange ideas, but nothing in her career had prepared her for an alien in her living room, claiming that Earth's human DNA could save an entire species from extinction. Jack had tried to process everything Zora had told him, but it still didn't make sense. How could the DNA of one human, him, be so important? And why had Zara come to Earth instead of finding help from other advanced species? The questions buzzed around in his head, but his mom seemed to be the one who would figure this all out. So, Dr. Emily said, her voice steady but strained, you're saying that your entire species is on the brink of extinction, and the only way to save them is by having human children. Zara nodded, her expression serious. Yes, your genetics are crucial. You may not understand, but I am here to ensure the survival of my people. Without your DNA, we will die. Dr. Emily stared at Zara for a long moment, her mind racing. And how exactly does this work? You come to Earth, pick any random human, and breed with them. What's the science behind this? Zora's blue eyes gleamed, and she stood taller, her posture proud. I studied your species for years. Earth's genetic code has a unique structure, one that my species has never had access to. Our genetic diversity is limited, and we need the richness of your people's biology to revive ours. It's not just breeding, it's the genetic compatibility. Jack's mom looked like she was about to explode with questions. So let me get this straight. You came all the way here, across the galaxy, just for human DNA. Zora's eyes softened for a moment, and she nodded. Yes, it's the only way. Our scientists have tried everything else, but nothing worked. You are our last hope. Jack watched his mom carefully. She wasn't one to easily panic, but her face was pale, and her hands were shaking slightly. Dr. Emily turned to Jack, her expression a mix of disbelief and concern. Jack, are you sure you're hearing this correctly? She asked, her voice low. Jack nodded slowly. I don't know, Mom. I don't get it either. But she seems serious. I mean, she's not acting like some alien invader or anything. She seems, I don't know, desperate. Desperate, his mom repeated, her eyes narrowing. I don't care if she's desperate. I want to know if this is even possible, if we can trust her, if she's telling the truth about all of this. Zora didn't seem offended by the suspicion. Instead, she remained calm and composed. I understand your doubts, but the truth is simple. My people are dying, and the future of our species depends on you, Jack. Dr. Emily paced again, deep in thought. Finally, she spoke up. Okay, I'll help you, but I need more than just words. I want proof that what you're saying is true. I need evidence that this is really necessary and that we're not making a huge mistake. Zora looked at her, and for the first time, Jack saw a flash of vulnerability in her eyes. You will have the evidence. I can show you the technology of my world, the data, everything you need to understand. But time is running out. I cannot wait forever. Jack's mom sighed and rubbed her temples. Fine, but if this is some kind of trick, I will not let you use my son for some alien experiment. Zora's eyes softened again. I would never force you, Jack, but I'm afraid there is no choice. Jack glanced between his mom and Zora. His heart pounded in his chest. It was becoming clear that his life was no longer going to be normal. His mom had agreed to help, but Jack wasn't sure if he could handle the weight of the decision. Everything had changed in an instant. The room felt heavy with silence as they all processed what was happening. Jack wasn't sure what came next, but one thing was certain. The adventure he'd always dreamt of had just begun, and there was no going back. The next few days were a blur of strange meetings, long discussions, and conflicting emotions. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that his life had completely flipped upside down. Every time he thought about Zora and the impossible situation they were in, he felt a mix of fear, curiosity, and a strange sense of responsibility. His mom, Dr. Emily, was working tirelessly, trying to gather data and study the alien technology Zora had shown her. But Jack, deep down, knew the decision wasn't up to her alone. It was his. Jack, I need to talk to you, his mom said one afternoon, her voice more serious than ever. She sat down beside him at the kitchen table, looking exhausted but determined. I've been doing research with Zora's help. What she's saying about her species, it checks out. They really are facing extinction. Jack didn't respond at first, just staring out the window. The sky was clear, and everything outside looked so normal, so untouched. But inside the house, it felt like the world was changing, one strange alien encounter at a time. His mom continued, her voice quiet but full of concern. We've discovered that Zora's people are genetically compatible with humans, but their population has been severely limited. They've lost the ability to reproduce within their own kind. She wasn't lying about needing human DNA. It's the only way they can survive. Jack swallowed hard. His mind was still racing, and the weight of what his mom was saying hit him like a ton of bricks. So, if I don't help her, her species will die. His mom nodded. That's what Zora says, and from the data I've seen, I don't think she's lying. But that doesn't mean it's the right choice for you, Jack. Jack looked at his mom, her eyes full of concern. She'd always been the rational one, the scientist who looked for logic and evidence before making any decision. But this wasn't just about science. This was about his body, his future, and the future of an entire alien species. I don't know what to do, Mom, Jack said, his voice shaking slightly. I mean, how do I even make a decision like this? What if I'm doing something wrong? His mom sighed deeply. I know this isn't easy, but I've been thinking about it too. I think we both need to understand what this means, not just for Zora's people, but for you. Jack ran a hand through his hair. He wanted to say something, anything, to make the situation feel less insane. But nothing came. He couldn't stop thinking about Zora, the way she looked at him, the way she spoke with such certainty about her people's survival. She didn't seem like an enemy. She seemed desperate. Why me, though? Jack finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Why did she choose me? His mom frowned, looking a little unsure herself. I don't know. Maybe it's just luck. Or maybe she sees something in you that makes you the perfect candidate for this. Jack let out a shaky laugh. I don't feel special, Mom. I'm just a regular guy. I know you do, she said softly. But sometimes life throws us into situations we never asked for. It's up to us to make the right choices. Jack thought about it for a long time. The idea of saving an entire species, of being the one person who could decide their future, was overwhelming. But at the same time, he couldn't ignore the pull he felt toward Zora. She wasn't some evil alien conqueror. She was just someone trying to survive, trying to save her people from disappearing forever. I need some time to think about this, Jack said finally, standing up and walking to the window. I need to be sure. His mom nodded, though her face was filled with worry. Take all the time you need. But remember, Jack, whatever you decide, you're not alone in this. Jack didn't answer right away. His thoughts were all over the place. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just about Zora anymore. It was about him, his future, and the future of humanity. As he looked out at the quiet world beyond his window, Jack knew one thing for sure. He would have to make a choice. And that choice would change everything. The days dragged on, each one filled with questions that Jack couldn't answer. His mind was a whirlwind of doubt, guilt, and confusion. How could he make a decision like this? The fate of an entire alien species rested on his shoulders, and yet he was just a regular guy, trying to figure out his life. And still, the voice of Zora echoed in his mind. You are the key. Jack had spent the last few days thinking about nothing but her, about her glowing blue eyes, her calm yet urgent tone. She had made it clear that time was running out for her people, and every passing minute felt like an eternity. But even as he tried to focus on the situation, the enormity of it all kept him frozen in place. Jack, we need to talk. His mom's voice broke through his thoughts one evening. She had been busy with her own research, but now, the time for decisions had arrived. She was standing in the doorway of his room, her face serious. Zora just contacted me again. She's getting impatient. Jack didn't respond immediately. He knew his mom was right. The pressure was building. Zora had been patient, but it was clear she was running out of options. The desperation in her voice each time they spoke only made him feel worse. He wasn't sure how much longer he could keep this up. Mom, Jack said, his voice heavy with frustration. I'm not sure what to do. She's not forcing me, but it feels like I have no choice. What if I say no? What if I'm making a huge mistake? Dr. Emily sat down beside him, her eyes filled with sympathy. "Jack, I know this is difficult. It's not just about you anymore. This is about the future, and you're not making this decision alone. I'm here for you, no matter what." Jack rubbed his temples, trying to think straight. The burden of the decision felt heavier every day. He could feel the weight of Zara's need pressing down on him, but at the same time, a part of him was still unsure. Could he really be the one to save an entire species? Was this his responsibility? "I don't know if I can do this, Mom," Jack said, his voice breaking. "I've never been someone who has to make choices like this. It's too much." "I understand," Dr. Emily said gently. "But think about this. Zara's people are facing extinction. They have no other way to survive, and you could be the one to change that. You could give them a chance at life." Jack sighed and leaned back against his chair, staring at the ceiling. He felt like he was drowning in choices, and every direction seemed uncertain. What if Zara wasn't telling the whole truth? What if there were consequences he hadn't even begun to consider? Just then, there was a knock on the door, and Zara's voice echoed from the other side. "Jack, I know you are struggling, but I cannot wait much longer. My people, we are dying. If you refuse, we have no other options left." Jack's stomach twisted. He had been avoiding facing her, but now there was no escaping the inevitable. Zara was right there, just outside the door, waiting for him to make up his mind. The longer he hesitated, the more it felt like the decision was slipping away from him. His mom stood up and moved toward the door. She placed a hand on Jack's shoulder before turning to face the alien outside. "Zara, give him a little more time. He's still processing everything." Zara's voice was soft, but filled with urgency. "I have given him all the time I can. The future of my species is in his hands." Jack took a deep breath. He couldn't avoid this much longer. The weight of the world, or in this case, an entire species, was on his shoulders. He knew that no matter what, he would never be the same person again after this. He stood up slowly and walked toward the door. He had made his decision. But as he opened it, he realized one thing. No matter what choice he made, there would be no turning back. Jack stood in front of the door, his hand resting on the handle. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest, each beat echoing in his ears. Behind the door, Zara was waiting. Her voice had sounded urgent, desperate, but also patient, as if she knew the weight of the decision Jack was facing. For the past few days, he had wrestled with this moment. The pressure from Zara, his mom, and the responsibility he felt had been overwhelming. There was no going back now. Whatever decision he made would change everything. But in the end, the choice was his, and his alone. Taking a deep breath, Jack pushed the door open. Zara stood in front of him, her blue eyes soft and calm but filled with an undeniable urgency. She looked different now, less like an alien invader and more like someone who had nowhere else to turn. "You came," she said, her voice steady but filled with hope. Jack stepped outside, his mom standing behind him in the doorway, her face tight with concern. He could feel her eyes on him, waiting for his decision. She had always trusted his judgment. But this was different. This was something bigger than anything he had ever faced before. "I've made my decision," Jack said, his voice a little shaky but determined. "I will help you." Zara's face lit up with a mixture of relief and gratitude. "You do not know what this means to us, Jack. You have saved my people." Jack nodded slowly, still trying to wrap his mind around everything. "I don't know what it means for me yet, Zara, but I can't let you and your species disappear. I won't be the reason your people go extinct." Zara's gaze softened, and she stepped closer to him. "I knew you would understand. Your compassion, your willingness to help. It's why I chose you. You have the heart of a true leader, even if you do not yet see it." Jack felt a wave of conflicting emotions. He wasn't a leader. He was just a regular guy, caught in an impossible situation. But he couldn't deny the sincerity in Zara's words. He had made his choice, and now he had to live with it. His mom stepped forward, her eyes locked on Zara. "I need you to understand something, Zara. I've agreed to this, but it's not just Jack's decision. We are doing this as a family. You will answer our questions, and you will show us everything. No more secrets." Zara nodded, her expression respectful. "I understand, Dr. Emily. I will answer everything you ask. I owe you that." Jack glanced at his mom. Her face was calm, but he could tell how much this was weighing on her. She had always been the rational one, the scientist, but now she was facing something beyond her comprehension. Yet she had agreed to support him, to help him in this choice, even though it was clear that she was scared too. "I'm doing this because I believe it's the right thing to do," Jack said, his voice steadying. "But I need you to be with me, Mom. I can't do it alone." Dr. Emily smiled at him, a small but proud smile. "You won't be alone. We'll figure this out together." With that, Zara stepped back and motioned for them to follow her. "Come with me. I will show you the way forward. The technology we use, the research we've done, everything you need to know." As Jack and his mom followed Zara, Jack couldn't help but feel a mixture of fear and anticipation. The decision had been made. There was no turning back now. And as they walked into the unknown, Jack knew that the future, his future, Zara's future, and the future of an entire alien species was about to change forever. Jack, his mom, and Zara stood in front of a strange-looking device, a massive structure that seemed to hum with an energy Jack couldn't quite understand. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. Smooth, metallic surfaces that seemed to shift in the light, glowing faintly. The air around it felt thick, almost electric. "This is it," Zara said, her voice quiet but filled with certainty. "This is the machine that will help us. It's what we've been working on for years." Jack looked at his mom, who stood beside him, eyes wide in awe. She had been skeptical at first, but now she was as curious as Jack, if not more. She had spent days learning about Zora's people and their technology, and the more she saw, the more she realized that the stakes were higher than she had imagined. "So this is how it's going to work?" Dr. Emily asked, her voice steady but filled with caution. "You're saying that this device can really—" "Yes," Zara interrupted. "It will allow us to combine our genetics with yours. It's not just a matter of breeding. We've spent years perfecting this process. This will be the first step towards saving my people." Jack took a deep breath. Everything had led to this moment. His mind was a mix of excitement and fear. He had made the choice to help, but now he had to trust Zara and her people completely. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, his voice a little shaky. "What if something goes wrong?" Zara turned to him, her expression softening. "I understand your fear, Jack. This is a big step, not just for me, but for you too. But I promise you, we have tested and perfected this process. There is no risk to you." Jack glanced at his mom again, who gave him a reassuring smile. "We've come this far, Jack. You made the right choice. And whatever happens, we're in this together." Taking another deep breath, Jack nodded. "All right, let's do it." Zara's face brightened with relief. "Thank you. You do not know how much this means to us. You have given my people hope again." With a calm but determined expression, Zara moved toward the machine and began to input a series of commands on a sleek, glowing panel. The machine hummed louder now, its lights flickering as if it were coming to life. Jack could feel his heart racing in his chest, each second feeling like an eternity. His mom stood next to him, her hand on his shoulder. "Whatever happens next, Jack, I'm proud of you. You've done something incredibly brave." Jack looked at her, and for the first time in days, he felt a little bit of peace. He wasn't sure what the future held, but he knew that he had made the right choice, and that was enough for now. Zara stepped back from the machine and turned to face them. "It is ready," she said, her voice full of hope. "This will be the beginning of a new chapter, For my people and for you. Jack stepped forward, his mind made up. He had crossed a line. There was no turning back. The future was no longer something that just happened to him. It was something he was now actively shaping. He looked at Zora one last time. Her face was full of gratitude. But there was something else in her eyes too. Something that spoke of the weight of what was about to happen. As the machine powered up, and the air around them crackled with energy, Jack realized that this was the moment that would change everything. The adventure had only just begun. The future of two species, human and alien, was now linked forever. And with that, the machine came to life, its hum rising to a crescendo as Jack took his first step into an uncertain but hopeful new world.